Good evening, everyone, and welcome to a town hall discussion on the status of K-pop in the Black community, a State of the Union address. I am your host, Sofab Kim, and today we have an important but difficult discussion on cultural appropriation, representation, and the Black perspective within the K-pop community. Today, we have Maya Selby, founder of Kpop for Peace, Robbie Atkinson, CEO of RPX Media Productions, and PreShus, creator of My K-Pop Life. We will also have several guests joining us throughout the discussion. During this time, we ask that all participants and viewers keep their comments respectful and tasteful. Now let's jump into the first topic of cultural appropriation and appreciation in K-pop. Ladies, are you ready?
Ready.
All right.
Yes.
Let's start with the first question. In K-pop, is there a difference between cultural appropriation and cultural appreciation? And where is the line drawn?
Wow, that's a big question. Appropriation versus appreciation. There's definitely some love that's been shared over the years from the artists. I know, for instance, when I went to KCON 2018, Hani from Exit actually said that one of her biggest influences was India.Arie. Now, if anyone here, we all know India.Arie, we love her, but she hasn't necessarily received all the accolades that she probably should have received as an artist. So to hear that someone across the world looks at her as inspiration, that's kind of like the biggest form of flattery and appreciation. But on the flip side, being able to see the nuances and the inflections and some of the things that come through some of these performances that we see, but then no acknowledgement of where it comes from, I think that's kind of leading more towards the appropriation part. Would you all agree with that?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
A major marker for me is the willingness to learn extensively, like the history of where things come from. It's one thing to look at something and say that you enjoy it, but to take the time to study up on it, to study the influencers of it, that to me is the biggest importance. Because you can appreciate something but still remain ignorant about it. You see what I'm saying? So I think that shows a bit more, that translates to more sincerity. And that's the difference for me.
Definitely. When you take the time to learn about the culture that you are essentially using as a means to express yourself, it's definitely important to learn as much as you can about it to ensure that if someone asks you the question, where did you get this from? Like, where'd you get this idea? Okay, I got this idea from this, that, and the third with the history attached. It shows appreciation. It shows that you care. It shows that you're willing to learn about what you're using.
Yeah, I was going to add to that. I think with K-pop coming to the States in the way that it's kind of now entered, it's always been here, but the fact that now the public is, seeing BTS everywhere, seeing Blackpink everywhere, a lot of people, I'm sure, within our community are like, what is this? Why do they sound like me? Why are they dancing like me? Why do they have clothes? Like, where is this coming from? Are you just ripping this and then just doing it? But I mean, with that is the knowledge of knowing that a lot of us are behind the scenes in the music industry in Korea. A lot of composers, a lot of songwriters, producers, choreographers, Teddy Riley, even king of New Jack Swing, had multiple hits over in South Korea for quite some time, for over a span of 7 years. His music is still being played as like #1 hits for people. Beanie Man has even been there. Timbaland, Pharrell, Missy has performed with G-Dragon. So there's a number of artists and people behind the scenes that are working. But at the same time, it's like, okay, are you just giving the culture away at that point?
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
And how do you guys feel about idols who are showing appropriation without actually doing the research and appreciating?
I guess it feels like you're just taking the easy way out.
Yeah.
I guess in short, if you were to sum everything up. And I feel like part of what makes that so offensive for the Black community is the fact that that has happened before already. We've had that happen in America. We've had artists like Elvis who became famous for doing these things that seemed original, but when you do research into it, you see it was never original. It was always borrowed. There was always something, I think, that for the Black community that has always been borrowed and claimed as someone else's for their own, and it's just offensive. It's hurtful because I think that there's already been a history of not even just in the musical sense. When you look at like America's system in general, the whole concept of taking people from a whole country and bringing them somewhere else, it's like that repeated cycle over and over again. It gets exhausting. It gets tiring, and you want to see a change. So it's like a smack to the face, really.
Mm-hmm.
PreShus and Maya, do you guys feel the same way?
Yeah, I definitely feel the same way. Because what comes to mind after Robbie spoke is the concept of, I don't know, a lot of people know this, but in the 1980s, Korea actually did a musical play on roots because they appreciated it.
Mhm.
However, they turned it into a musical. They took a serious situation, a serious topic, a serious movie explaining a serious situation in our history and turned it into a musical. But not only that, to show their appreciation, they did blackface. Every character was in blackface. That is a difference between wanting to appreciating it and actually wanting to know about it. Understand that when you're doing these things, it's okay if you love it, but make sure you're knowledgeable on it. Make sure that you have the concepts and the key points involving the culture that you are essentially appreciating. So I definitely feel the same way with Robbie, where Robbie is coming from. It's tiring, like she said. I get tired of having to express how I feel and then receiving backlash because I'm assuming that the idol doesn't appreciate it. They can appreciate it, but they can also know about my culture.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there's a few instances that come to mind. One of them is Jessie. Jessie is a rapper. She's from New York, New Jersey, and created her career over in Korea. And she has physically augmented herself. And I mean, I'm all for self-love, appreciation, doing what you need to do to feel that. But tanning your skin to a certain hue while at the same time augmenting certain features that are synonymous with a particular look, and you are a rapper, that's going to be perceived as you appropriating because you want to pander to that audience. You want to be seen as more acceptable to that audience. You don't have to do that. I appreciate seeing you as yourself. And if you're rapping and you're good, that's awesome. That shows that you've studied the culture. I'll give an example. Top from Big Bang. They had a book that came out back in 2008, 2009. And he wrote about how he got into hip hop. He actually went in the underground scene. He studied Biggie. He studied poetry. And by finding Biggie, he realized, oh, I can turn this is actual music. I can take my poetry and make it to music. And through that, he understood the prose. You can hear it in his lyrics. He understands the mechanics that go behind hip hop. It's not just, I'm just going to rap because it's cool, because it's fun. No, I actually understand what this is. So seeing artists, there are several other artists like this, but understanding that they understand where all of this comes from, and they know that it was because of them, it influenced how they are now able to have this career, is important. I think it's important with anybody, but especially when it's another culture as well.
Do you think that some people have a tendency to sweep things under the rug when it comes to some of their favorite idols? And when there may be a case of them appropriating other races?
I think so, because in the same band, G-Dragon, when Trayvon Martin case happened, for whatever reason, the same reason I guess some of the influencers are doing it now, he put on blackface and a hood. Now, in his mind, he was trying to say some kind of solidarity thing, but I'm like, that's not how you do that. And he's since learned from that, and he got a whole bunch of backlash. He's still getting backlash from that. But it's important to hold them accountable when they're wrong. So we need to. That's part of the love. And I know, Maya, you said this earlier. That's part of the love. When you love someone, you chastise and you teach. And that's part of it as a fan. Like, you might not obviously get to speak with them directly, but we can let them know in our own way, I guess. Yeah.
Definitely. And to touch on her bringing up what I said, definitely, because even myself being immersed in the K-pop community, I have found that as I progress through time, when I'm essentially talking about these idols that are doing cultural appropriation, I had to take a step back because I said, even if I don't hard stand these groups, I can't hold them accountable if I'm not holding my own groups accountable. There's been plenty of times where the groups that I love and care about and will promote to the ends of the earth have done cultural appropriation. And I had to come to the understanding that me correcting them when they're wrong is not me loving them any less. If you love someone, you're going to genuinely teach them right from wrong simply because you want them to be the best version of themselves. So if you care about them truly, let them know when they're doing something wrong. But understand that if you don't have that same mindset and you see someone correcting an idol, don't treat them as if they're in the wrong. They're not a stan. Oh, you're an anti. No, that's not the case. I want you to understand where I'm coming from. I want them to understand. Don't give me backlash for wanting my idol to live up to the representation that they themselves have set.
I think that with K-pop being as international as it has become, I feel that you have to be willing to spread that education. You have to have that sense of accountability of explaining that this is not okay, or there's a different way to go about things. And I feel like when it comes to idols and K-pop culture, I feel almost like in the same way that maybe almost like a parent or sometimes a teacher looks at that child that's like, oh, maybe it's the child who's a little more favored. They tend not to want to be as harsh on them. You don't have to be harsh, but there's a way to still educate or inform with love, but there's still a sense of accountability. It's not any form of love if there's no accountability. You see what I'm saying? I agree.
And I do want to take two of these questions from the audience because it is hitting hard on the appropriation topic. Vince Clark, he said, is it possible the cultural difference might be too dissimilar that both will always be kind of appropriating?
Robbie, how do you feel? Because I know you touched on this topic in our past discussions. How do you feel about this?
Too dissimilar that both will always be kind of appropriating. I think there will always be room where you kind of clash, you kind of butt heads. Like it's going to be inevitable in the sense that we're kind of just in the same space that we're going to occupy. As long as you're here on the same earth, that's going to happen. But what matters is the willingness to learn. Because even if you're going to do that, even if it can happen by accident, and say there has to be some bit of grace that's given in the education process, still with the internet and the age of information and that access of information, I feel like, yes, it's possible that it can always happen, but it's also possible that you can always learn.
Yeah.
I agree. Yeah. Especially in a place that has the fastest internet on the entire planet. If y'all didn't know that, the fastest internet in the world is in South Korea. So knowledge is power on everybody's end. I know specifically speaking from Black culture, we are always kind of well-versed in other cultures on what to do and what not to do, and also to consider everyone. It's just something that's ingrained in us. Now, is everybody doing that? No, because we're not all one and the same. But I know that it's something that is a value within our culture. It may be something that may be in other cultures, but I'm not sure because I'm not a part of them. So as we continue to, especially now with COVID, us being all digital, we're in a sense farther, but also closer than we have been before. And as we, tend to come together, like Robbie was saying, you're going to butt heads and there's going to be different instances of, okay, is this okay? Is this not okay? Did I do this correctly? But the important thing, like she said, is to correct it if you need to, but also learn what's good, what's not good in that instance.
Yeah.
And
It's all about that. I was about to say, I think it's definitely a key of a willingness to learn, but also the skill of communication. Being able to, if you see that there's an issue, if you see someone, one of your mutuals, as you call it, say, okay, hey, I would like to have a discussion with you. Don't do it out in the comments. They're automatically going to get defensive. Take it to private messaging and have that open, mature discussion. That's the key to making sure that these issues that we're running into, they're not going to magically disappear, but we're going to start to minimize them. We're going to start to decrease them as long as we have communication and a willingness to learn.
it's a really good point. Really good point. Another question we had was from Tatiana. She said, in this cancel culture we live in, do you think there is any grace given for artists that do something offensive because they are just ignorant of the history?
Well, I feel like there's going to be grace. There has to be. No one is perfect. Everyone's going to make a mistake. When you learn anything for the first time, you make mistakes. When you learn to ice skate, you slip and you fall several times. But that's part of the learning process. Like in school, in general, there was always that safe space to learn, right? Is just as long as you learn. I think that for some people, the problem lies in when people try to explain, hey, just beware of this, be sensitive to this. And the reaction is, oh, be quiet, the invalidation, cut off, dismiss. That's when it becomes a problem. But I think that in terms of giving grace, that some people may not have that concept. They may not understand that concept, and you will see it. But I think that despite cancel culture, you can still offer that grace. It's a learning process. And with K-pop being a genre that has been around for a bit, but it's just recently getting the attention that it has, there's certain things that are still relatively new to them. So you can extend that time, but you also know it's kind of like when you're in math class, the teacher wants you to learn that 5 + 5 is 10. For a while, you're not going to know how to add that up. But when you finally learn, you learn. So if they tell you 5 + 5 is 10, you go somewhere else and say 5 + 5 is 2. That's a problem when you have been taught, when you have been told. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah. I think specifically the artists that know, there are artists that know. Like it's not just, come on now.
Their network,
okay, you know what to know. You see everything, you're part of it. And specifically for those artists, if they do not say anything, if they do not acknowledge, if they misstep, then the cancel culture is most definitely coming for them because you know better. And I know where you're getting this from. So you've acknowledged it in the past. So you can't hide it now.
Yeah.
And we have another question. Actually, we should be able to fit this one in before we jump to the next topic. But from Troy Lee, he said, how far along do you think a fan base will allow ignorance to be used as an excuse for appropriation?
Now that's big because when you talk about fan base, you have fans all over the world. You have fans that don't necessarily see things the same way. You have fans that don't care about the same things. You have fans that don't have the same experiences. So there will be some, and I've actually come across a few who did not even understand the importance of the Black Lives Matter movement and why the Black K-pop fans were so upset that they didn't hear anything. They were like, oh, well, G-Dragon said something in 2014. And I said, honey child, it's 2020. This is why. This is why. And it was a long discourse, but it was fun. It was healthy conversation. But had I not said anything, the conversation would not have been had. Like Black Lives Matter was not a thing to happen in this fan group. But because I, as a Black K-pop fan, brought it up, we had that conversation. So there are a lot of fans all over that this does not apply to them. This does not affect them. So they don't see it as a problem that their upas are not speaking up at this time.
And definitely I can touch base on that because being on social media surrounded by K-pop stans, K-pop idols, there is a time where when you say, oh, they didn't know, okay, they knew. I mean, they know, like they've been in the game for a couple years now. Like they talked about it. They should be well aware, especially when your fan base is not strictly to Korea. It's definitely not strictly to Korea. You have fan bases all over the world. You should be able to educate yourself on your fan base. We are the reason why you're getting the money coming into you. If there was no fan base, how are you going to thrive? So a lot of fans have recognized that in recent times that okay, there's that ignorance is not the answer. But there's still, I feel like those fairly new K-pop stans who don't want to recognize it because they're still so caught up in this is what they're doing for me and this is the love that they're giving me and this is how great they are. And they want to protect them. We take that topic of protecting our idols deeply.
Yes.
But it's a time to understand that protecting them and educating them, we have to separate it. You can still protect them, but you can also educate them so that way you don't have to keep protecting them from the ignorance that they keep encountering.
I definitely agree with everything said. I feel like at the end of the day, it boils down to like that. I guess you see your idol with like star eyes, and so you choose to ignore like rose-colored glasses, if you will. So you choose to ignore the red flags, like that. Personally, I think that can only go on for so long because it's a matter of time. If you're ignoring them doing that towards another group, it's a matter of time before they do something that offends you, and then it becomes a problem. But you see, when they were doing it for other people, you were ignoring it and you were not paying attention to it. So there's a saying I remember my mother always told me when I was growing up, and she said, "Pay attention to how your friends treat other people." And at the end of the day, that's the foundation of it.
All right, ladies, we're going to move on to our next segment, which is going to be representation and beauty standards. And the first question that we have for that is, being a Black K-pop fan, do you feel fan fiction and artwork depict realistic representations of Black people and culture?
No.
Okay.
No. No, it does not. It really does not. That's something that really rubs me the wrong way. For example, there was a time where I was on Facebook and there was this K-pop group and they had fan work done as, I think they call it Your Name. So some artists had created Your Name pictures with these group members. And I got in the comments and I said, all of these women that are Your Name, there's only one race, like fair skin, blonde hair, brown hair. There's no diversity. K-pop idols have to understand they have fans in different places, and then the K-pop stans have to realize that not all fans look like that. There's a lot of us that are got some nice little melanin to our skin. Why not represent that? And I actually got backlash, and they said, well, based off of the Korean beauty standards, this is what their ideal type is like. They said they'll never date a Black woman. When did they say that and when? Because I look at every conversation they have. I don't recall that. I never recall that. I've had people tell me, oh, well, you'll never end up with an idol or end up with a Korean man because they don't like Black people and you don't fit their standards. Why say that? Why say that? Why? It doesn't fit. And when when the K-pop stans are writing these fanfics, when they do have a Black person in it, we're always ghetto. We're always ratchet. We always have the gun, the weed. That's not what it is whatsoever at all. Please stop. Please stop.
Yeah. Now, do you think that's because we're not the ones writing? There should be more of us writing.
It should be a lot of us writing. A lot of us writing and using that artistic ability that we have. I strongly believe every K-pop stan has an artistic ability. If you are a writer and you are a minority, use that and represent us. Let them know that we're not going to say, I'm going to pop off like that. Don't do that. Don't let them portray us like that. Please don't.
Right.
Please don't.
And I think we also are going to have a fan join us as well. Sabrina is going to jump in on the discussion. Welcome, Sabrina.
Hi.
How you doing?
Oh, I just got back from work. Traffic was crazy.
Oh, girl, I'm sorry.
It's okay.
Did you want to add anything on that question as well?
Yes. I've been in K-pop for like 13 years now. So I've like seen my fair share of fanfics and all of that. Honestly, I was a little concerned as well, because a lot of the times that I would see a Black woman be in a fanfic is if she's like mixed or has like light brown eyes, light green eyes, long curly hair. They didn't really add in like representation for women that are monoracial and have like 4C hair or anything. And yes, the whole like Black people thing, I've heard that as well. But I don't know, it's kind of crazy because they're very open about it. Like if you watch BTS's American Hustle Life, Jackson was on a show and was like, yeah, Beyonce was my love of my life. Like they say it, they don't keep it to themselves. So I feel like a lot of these fans, it's just the anti-Blackness speaking when they say that, because they don't want to believe that their idols would actually go for someone that looks the complete opposite of what they look like. You know what I'm saying? So as I grew, I was like, I'm not going to take it to heart because that's literally what it was. The more we grow, we see that that's all a lie. It wasn't true. And yeah, I think a lot of it just stems from anti-Blackness, to be honest. That's where it stems from. And the fans that write that are Black, like that's just self-hate, So that's all I gotta say about it.
Is there a platform for some of you who may be interested in fan fiction or some of the artwork to essentially, contribute your own?
What's that one site called? Wattpad?
Oh, Wattpad.
So I'm not gonna lie to y'all, I was really deep in that fan fiction life. Like I was so deep into it. I have to get out. I'm in college now, it's a little too much. But when I was younger, I know Asian fanfics, I don't know if it's still up. Asian fanfics was a really, really big one. And it was like international, like fans from like the Philippines, everyone would write their stories on there. And then there were also separate sites for separate fandoms for fanfics. I don't know if it's still a thing anymore, but there was also that option. But as far as I know, I think Wattpad is like the most popular one. That one's popping.
Yeah.
And then as far as idolization goes, of Korean beauty standards, how does that affect your personal beauty standards? Any of you?
Ooh.
Well, I mean, honestly, like it's their. I feel okay, so I can only speak to my personal experience. Like you hear that they like pale skin, long straight hair, these kinds of things. And yet when I went to Korea, my experience was that they were still equally as fascinated when they see you. They're still saying, you're beautiful, and it's like, it was eye-opening to me because I think I had done my research before I went, and I had heard people say, like, they like this type, blah, blah, blah. So I didn't expect to get any attention. And yet when you walk down the street, I actually bumped into poles, like walking by you, because they're staring so hard. So I'm saying there is that standard that has been reinforced. And then there's also the shock of seeing something different and that openness to it. So I don't look and feel pressured to look like that for me personally, but I feel like for younger girls who have not established that sense of self, that can be a bit detrimental to their esteem. Or do you see what I'm saying?
And I definitely want to think on that. Go ahead. Go ahead, girl. Go ahead.
I was going to say, I'm the Ajima in the group. I have been married for quite some time. So, and I'm an older K-pop fan. I'm 33, and I got into this about 4 years ago. And for me, the phase in which I would have been worried about that had already passed. So, but I can definitely see how young women, Black women in particular, can be affected by that, because you hear the music that sounds like what you're used to. You hear the lyrics that sound like what you're used to. You see the moves, you see the style, you see the swag, but then what would normally attract, that's not what's being looked for. So I could definitely see the disconnect there of like, okay, but do you see me? I'm here. Am I beautiful to you too? But I think the important thing is to realize that you don't need that validation.
Exactly. Yeah.
You don't need it. It's already, you're everything you need. You don't need that.
Yeah.
Sabrina, go ahead.
Okay. You can go. I think you ready. I'll wait.
No, this is a town hall. Jump.
I will talk after you're done.
I can definitely say I've only been into K-pop since 2018. So I'm still quote unquote a baby technically in the K-pop world, but I'm glad that I got into it at the time that I did because it's taken me years of growth, of self-love, self-respect, self-confidence
Mhm.
to have that mindset that despite what these people are saying, yes, the comments are hurtful, but I have to recognize no matter who it is, anyone that wants to date me has to recognize that I'm me for me. If you can see me for who I am, see me as a strong Black woman. If you can't recognize that, then you're not worth my time.
Mhm.
But I can see it also in the younger generation. I can definitely say that a lot of the time, there's so many beautiful minority girls of different shades who want to fit that ideal standard that's been ingrained in them. I've seen girls bleach their skin. I've seen girls try to lose weight. I've seen these girls do so many different things, and boys too, because they want to fit in. They want to be that standard for their idol. They want to be beautiful, and it's unhealthy. So, honestly, my message is if you're out here listening, you don't have to change yourself. You're
Mhm.
beautiful the way you are. Any person is going to love you for who you are. Respect yourself and just grow from it. What
Mhm.
anybody has to say, don't worry about it. So,
Um, yeah, honestly, I can say that growing up, since I was introduced to K-pop by my Asian friends, and I've been surrounded by Asians for like probably the last like 13 years of my life, along with everyone else, but like they'd be like my main group. But I'm not gonna lie and say that Asia doesn't have the hardest and craziest
mhm,
sense of beauty I've ever seen in my life. Like it's
mhm,
cutthroat. It is hard
mhm,
to maintain that kind of standard.
mhm,
But what I've learned is that when it comes to colorism and stuff like that, they don't
mhm,
really apply it to Black people, if that makes sense.
Mhm.
They don't really apply it to us, but they do apply stuff like weight and fashion and that kind of stuff. Like that still needs to be at their level. But in terms of the way, like your skin tone, no.
Mhm.
So, for example, like if it was an Asian person, they'd be like, "Oh yeah, they're dark for this." If it was a Black person, it's a little different.
mhm,
I've seen women, Black women of all shades, prospering in Korea. You know, and I think we need to really focus on what exactly we're looking for in terms of validation, you know?
Mhm.
I think self-love, it comes from you, you know, before anybody else. So if someone sees you and they see you don't love yourself, then they have no reason to love you either, you know?
Mhm.
And yeah, I just think confidence is powerful. They have
yeah,
their standards over there, but we shouldn't try so hard to fit into it. Matter of fact, I think they should branch out and accept people for being people, you know?
mhm,
Because we can all different shapes and sizes, shades, it doesn't really matter what their standard is, you know? And
Mhm.
also, like, okay, first of all, they be starving those idols. Like, I don't know why people even want to praise that.
mhm,
They be starving. I'm talking like I saw a clip of BTS, like, oh yeah, we fast for this many hours and then we eat for this many hours. Hyuna, she like posted a picture of her palm. That's how much she eats, you know, that's
Mm.
how big her meals are. And I'm like, that's not okay, you know? Like they
mhm,
starve, they have crazy diets, they work out. It's not like they were born perfect, you know?
mhm,
You can talk to trainees. They're like when they first get recruited, they can't eat after 6 o'clock, stuff like that. So we like people want to praise, but you don't know what goes on behind closed doors, you know?
mhm.
Like Jackson will be like, oh yeah, I don't eat any carbs at all for my diet. Like that's crazy. I love pasta. What? You know?
Yeah.
Like it's just a lot of things that these young girls don't know that they're just blindly praising, and they should know
Mhm,
all the bad parts of being a K-pop idol as well, so they can also
mhm,
see reality. Like this is not what you think it is. A regular
mhm,
person is not getting paid to look good. This is why they work so hard, because they get
Mhm.
paid based off their looks.
Mhm.
Koreans are they cutthroat. If you ugly, they're gonna tell you, hey, this girl, how's she an idol? She's ugly. You
Mhm.
know,
Yep.
they have to rise up to that standard, so we should
mhm.
not let it get to us because we're just regular people.
Mhm.
Yeah.
That's true.
Agreed.
Well, Sabrina, I thank you so much. Thank you for providing that insight.
Yeah.
Do you want to let anyone know where they can follow you at?
Oh yeah. So on Instagram, I didn't even think about that. So on Instagram, I'll put it in the chat, but it is Sabrina Flora. That's my IG. I do follow back. Like if I see you're a fan, whatever, and we got a common interest, I'm gonna follow back, obviously. I dance. I'm in college with psychology.
Yes, promote.
I'm a teacher, a pre-primary teacher.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm just here, you know. I'm always here to help out, give advice, you know, give some insight. Because I was once there, you know, when we're talking about these little girls that are seeing this and they're not seeing themselves. I was there, and I didn't have, you know, like K-pop is big now. There's a bigger platform. A lot more people are talking. When I was in it, we were struggling. We were struggling, and now, like, you know, we're kind of spoiled. So I want to be out there to help whoever needs it, you know?
Well, thank you so much. We definitely appreciate you. So we'll see you later, girl. So we're going to move into the next segment of the discussion, which is ultimately the Black perspective. And this time we are going to invite Misha on as well to kind of give her point of view. Hey, Misha, how you doing, girl?
Your mic. There we go.
Oh, perfect.
How you doing?
I'm good. How are you guys tonight?
Good. Okay, so the first question that we have for this is there have been some incidences of blackface in the K-pop realm. How difficult is it to continue to be a fan when you see this?
So for me, I think I have an interesting perspective. I find a lot of the things that happen in Korea to be just a stem and a system that just comes from the US. So Korea follows a lot of the trends that America does. Korea has as we've all seen with Top, they have a really strong dislike for marijuana, you know, all these different things. And I think that it has to start here first, you know? I feel like Korea won't ever change until America changes. And as a K-pop fan, it gets very difficult when I see people doing blackface, because at this point they should know better, you know, like it's no excuse, but they should know better. And it's just like, what is it that they think that is still an appropriate thing to do, especially at this point where Korea wants to kind of like be this global power, doing these things in their entertainment. So it's an interesting area as a K-pop fan to see all these things, but then you're kind of still here. You're hoping that people will change.
For me, you brought up a really good point. Yeah, go ahead, Robbie.
Well, I was just thinking, I had come across like an actual breakdown of the history of like minstrel and how that was used as a form of entertainment. And something I had brought up to a friend the other day was that even like for me, being a Black American person, finding out the history behind that, like we know it's wrong, we know it's offensive, but finding out the actual informational history about that, you have to research it. And what's more, you have to research it in English. See, when you try and type for something like that in Korean, I don't think there's even an explanation as to why that's where that came from. So if you don't know to type it in English, you won't find it. And like you said, if you see people doing it in America, you think, oh, it's not that bad. It must be all right. It's okay. Yeah. So I feel like that's a matter of that access of information and making sure that that awareness is spread. But still, there's a sense that even without knowing that background information, there should still be like something within you that's like, something about this feels a little weird. I wonder, you know, like I feel like it's a bit of access information and then also just that sense of like something's not quite right about this. What were you saying, PreShus?
So two things off of that. The first thing about, you know, opening yourself up to the Western market. kind of have to be well versed in what's okay and what's not.
Mhm.
And that's the executives, that's the managers, that's everybody that's around this team for these artists. And then that's also educating these artists as well. Like, you have to take the time to educate them on what's okay and what's not okay. Just like when they go to other countries and they're doing a tour, they learn the greetings so that way they say it correctly, that way they don't offend anyone. It's the same thing with this as well. And what's really interesting is that, I don't know if you all know, but there was a musical that was, or a play that was supposed to come out, and it was about the life of Tupac. And they were doing it with all Korean actors. There was no blackface this time. It was just going to be them doing the story. And a lot of people was like, okay, I understand that you're not doing blackface, but what is the point of doing this? Because it's not going to work. You know, like, so to that question, it's like, okay, well, what do you do to try to educate people? And I know, Maya, you have an interesting story about this,
Yeah.
where you actually had
Yeah.
conversation with a well-known Korean artist. So I'll let you go ahead and take over.
Yes, because I was thinking about that while you were saying it. Last year, I came in contact with a very well-known K-pop artist. I'm not sure if I need to disclose his name because I don't know how it turned out. But he was actually in the process of doing a Black Culture Festival in Korea. However, when he promoted the flyer, a lot of us noticed that there was no Black artist mentioned. And I got into his comments and I said, "But where are the Black artists?" Question mark, question mark, question mark. And he actually commented back. And essentially that led from us going from his comments to direct messaging. I'm gonna be quite honest, I felt like I was the queen of the world at that moment, the fact that he was actually talking to me. But he made a very good point. He said that when it comes to the way that the government is set up, there's a lot of things that you can do and that you cannot do. There's a sort of restriction and a sort of expectation that you have to maintain. And so he said that he had to do the Black Culture Festival in a way where he could spread the knowledge, but essentially not get in trouble. And the best way for him to do that was to do the Black Culture Festival, bring in Korean artists, and during the festival have presentations going on explaining the history behind Black music, Black culture, everything. And he said that was the best way for him to do it because you can't have a Black culture festival and then pass out a flyer, because he said that you have to think about, for the young children that are still at home, what happens when they bring that pamphlet home and their parents see it and their parents have the wrong mindset of Black culture. That can lead to legal issues. And so they're essentially trying to spread the word. Some of them, I know him for sure, but there's a certain way that you have to promote it based off of the restrictions that Korea has set. As I think it also deals with their mindset as well of what they see. Everything in social media they're seeing. So however we're being portrayed in the social media light is reflecting to them. So they're just going based off of what they're seeing, but they are trying to make that change to the best of their ability.
And with these experiences and the things that you guys are seeing, has it swayed you from being a fan at all?
Mm-hmm.
I will say right now, in this moment, I would be lying if I didn't say I didn't feel some kind of way. Because K-pop is shout out to our good friend Tatiana M. Johnson, the legend. She actually gave some advice on, keeping yourself mentally healthy, especially during this time. And one of those tips was immersing yourself in another culture, learning about the language, the food, the music, the history. And essentially that's what we're doing with Korean culture. It's not just, oh, oopa, I like the music. No, it's not just that. The language is beautiful. If you actually listen to the Korean language, the way that it is expressed is beautiful. And so that's why we're learning it. The dramas, the stories that come across are great. It's different than what we see here. And so an extension of that is essentially understanding that not everybody understands you, but at the same time, that bubble that was there of, oh, all of this newness and wonderfulness, and oh, snap, that dance, these moves, you can sing listening to Rain, and he had the same inflections as James Ingram, and he was singing his songs, legendary James Ingram, and he's singing his songs. That's cool to know that you admire him so much. Had he known that, that's dope. But at the same time, it's like, I feel disappointment because that bubble was burst. Because you once again have reminded me that I am a Black person in this world. Because not even in this moment, not even as much as you appreciate the culture, as much as you appreciate the artists, the silence is deafening. From those that did speak up, it's wonderful. Some of them did it for clout, we know, but the effect of it is still reaching people that need to be affected. But the ones who have not, I kid you not, I used to be so excited to see Top's updates on Instagram because to see him happy and coming back with music. But now it's like, I don't know if I want to hear from you right now because you haven't said anything to me. So that's where I am at the moment.
Sorry, go ahead.
I feel a bit as if you took it personal. You took it personal. Like I actually felt hurt when I noticed the silence. And what's more was when you speak out on observing that silence, the reaction that you get, which we've touched on, people lashing out at you, trying to tell you to be quiet, not worry about that, and things like that. It was a sense that for me, when I had found K-pop and K-hip hop, things like that, it felt like you saw these elements that like people were appreciating, because you do see that appreciation, and then to see that it's okay to take the culture and profit off of it and build a fan base off of it, but when something really happens to the people that culture is based on, you're silent. That was like, it hurt. This is the best way you can put it. I noticed for me personally, like I kind of, like what PreShus mentioned, like that diminished interest. I almost have like certain artists like on repeat now because they've spoken up, and the ones that didn't say anything, I felt angry. But then when you do a bit of research and you find out some of their agencies, like there was one rookie group where one of the girls actually tried to post on Instagram, her company shut her Instagram account down. Then that makes you upset, and it makes you look at the company now, because you see that some of them do want to say something, but they're being silenced too. And then that makes you view everything differently. It completely contorts your perspective, and it changes your feelings towards the genre in a weird way. It's a weird, like bittersweet kind of, it's uncomfortable.
Yeah.
I just want to say that rookie group was secret number, hashtag stand secret number. And I want to agree with the both of you. I feel the same way. I feel like a lot of people got into K-pop as a means of escapism, as a means of feeling like you have to always have your Blackness be the forefront of what people see about you. You know, it's something you can just enjoy, escape from reality. But now, again, just what you both said, something is happening to Black people, and people are not speaking up. And that illusion of, oh, my Blackness doesn't matter in this one space has been taken away. It's like, no, it always matters. It's always going to be in the forefront. And that for me has been really hard. And it's true. I too have been taking it personally. And for the people that have not spoken up, I don't know if any of you guys are like really into K-hip hop. I feel like it's even more egregious for those that are rappers, not idols, those who have small companies, you know, are out here, some not saying anything, and some going as far as to say, I don't need to say that. Rap is not Black culture. And it just feels so like disillusioning and so upsetting that something can be so clear as rap is Black music, and people who are doing rap can refute that, you know? And it has been difficult as a Black K-pop fan, a Black K-hip hop fan, to see all this, but I've really just been like throwing my support behind the groups that have said things in a way that has been authentic, not performative.
Now we talked about the idols, but when it comes to, you know, your fellow fans or your K-pop family, how do you guys handle the racial differences with that, or even just racism period in those groups?
Um, I'm gonna I'm gonna touch bases on that for sure. Um, in the fandoms that I'm in, one particular fandom, my first home, my first heart, um, they've always been a space of comfort for me. They've always been people that I could turn to when I felt like I couldn't turn to anyone else. However, this recent turn of events has really exposed a lot of people for who they are. I've seen plenty of people in the fandom who have thrown around the N word, told us to die, said they hope we get hit by cars.
Mm-hmm.
Why are you so upset? They shouldn't have to say anything just because you're upset. Well, he did this. This is why he was killed. It why? Like why? Why I there's no explanation and it hurts. It physically hurts to know that the people that I'm surrounding myself with are showing their true colors and it's just like if you don't care that this man died, what is going to be different about me? I could walk out this door and die. I can get shot down in the streets. You're not going to care about what my mom feels, what my brothers feel, what my friends feel. Are you going to paint me in a negative way too that you're painting everyone else? Are you going to tell my friends in the K-pop world, you know, don't ask them to say nothing about her death because that's none of their business. I've literally had to block people that I've been essentially close with because I can't take it. It hurts to know that family and friends are like this, but I'm not going to put myself through it. I cannot put myself through it. If you are a K-pop stan, we are taught love, respect. We are taught to be culturally competent. We are taught to make sure that we educate ourselves to become a better person. And if you're not exemplifying that, I don't want your vibe mixed with my vibe. So you have to go.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
There's a phrase, I can't remember what it is right now, but basically it means Black people who are in interracial friendships often have like the racism wool pulled over their eyes. So they're in these interracial friendships and they think things are going well, and then all of a sudden somebody does something like racist, has these ideals, and I feel like that's how it's been as a Black K-pop fan at this time. It's like all these people you feel like you're close with, you've got these bonds because you have this really strong connection over these groups, and then all of a sudden, you know, the wool is being pulled over your eyes that they do not care. They do not care about what you what people that you look like are going through, and ultimately they don't care about you, and that has been really disheartening. And I found a lot of compassion and solace in like Black K-pop groups or like Black, specifically Black K-pop fandoms, because to me, like, I don't have to worry about that. And you know, it kind of goes along with having like K-pop fans in real life. Like I have a couple, and those people are just my friends, so their opinions are important, and they care about these issues because I care about them. So kind of like these bigger organizations that have a lot of diversity, it's been hard at this time to kind of be in them and have these people say such horrendous things, and yet you thought that they were someone you could trust, you know?
Yeah, and then also for them to accuse you of hate,
right?
Because you're talking badly about the group or the artist, and I'm like, are you kidding me right now? This whole instance of what we're talking about is because of hate. And you're trying to say I'm hating because I'm trying to bring awareness to this. No, that's not how that works. I face this on a daily basis. There are things that we have to think about and consider as Black people as a whole. There are things walking through the store. I remember I was walking through Dollar Tree and I had my hands in my pockets, and I immediately was like, "Ooh, I got to take my hands out my pockets because they're gonna think I stole something." I spoke to someone who was from Argentina. She said she's never had that conversation before in her life. And I said, you know why? Because it doesn't apply to you. But it doesn't mean that it's not true. It doesn't mean that it's not a lived experience. And that applies to these K-pop fans too. They see the world the way that they see it because that's their lived experience. And in their mind, they're like, that's how it is. So when you speak up and say, no, this is real. Yes, I'm a fan, but hey, I'm Black first. It always will be. I can't take this off. I can't do anything with this. And it's like you're being reminded of that even in just listening to music. Can I just listen to the music? Can I just enjoy the dances? Can I just enjoy the scandals and the foolishness that happens in these fandoms? I can't because I'm Black first.
Yeah.
I found it really jarring at first because I remember when I went to Taeyang's concert when he came to America. He was in Atlanta.
Oh, you're so lucky. He spoke up, y'all. He spoke up.
Like he's like seeing the fandom is what actually surprised me. Long before I had gone to NCT 127 or long before I had gone to like BTS's concerts, things like that, I went to Taeyang and I remember the VIP section. There were older women who looked like they were grandmothers, maybe great grandmothers. I saw little girls. I saw people with babies in their arms. I saw one lady. We had the way the room was set up, they had a barrier, and Taeyang walked around the barrier and hugged and talked to people. And one lady stepped up to the barrier and he said, "Oh, it's you." And the lady said, "Yeah, you remember me from Peru." This lady flew from Peru. This 40-something-year-old woman flew up from Peru. Do you see what I'm saying? So I'm saying that for the fandom to be as diverse as it is, I had assumed that there was I immediately assumed that there was this kind of well-versed cultural, racial, social awareness. And to try and speak up about that and have fans in my inbox telling me, "Oh, you're ignorant, you're uneducated." Now, these are 16-year-old kids telling me I'm uneducated. And I had to say that I'm like, they're like, "Oh, you don't know BTS and you're not in fandom." And I had to say, sweetheart. But I mean, it was shocking. It's shocking is the best way I can describe it.
Well, unfortunately, we are almost at the top of the hour. And of course, we're going to have a part 2 about this because there are definitely a lot of questions that we did not get to. But before we end, really quickly, closing arguments. What's next?
What's next? I mean, it's interesting for all of us because this is essentially, I don't want to say it's a business for us, but it's a part of our lives. Maya has a nonprofit. It's a very strong mission. Robbie has a media production company and has toured all over the world with K-pop artists that you all know. And with My K-Pop Life, we're about to launch a docu-vlog series in which we're actually interviewing fans and showing their lives, to the world. So it's like, how do you move forward with these projects? How do you still post on your pages when you're still conflicted inside because you feel like you're supporting something that may not necessarily support you? Like, how do you do that? But then at the same time, how do you live in a country? How do you claim the country as your home? The same country that enslaved your ancestors and that continues to tell you that you don't matter and that because the president said so, Juneteenth is a holiday. No, sir. No, sir.
Girl, don't get too deep in it. Don't get too deep in it.
Sorry.
Bring it back in.
Coming back.
Reel it back in.
To be a Black K-pop fan. There you go.
To be a Black K-pop fan.
If you ladies can, please let us know how we can follow each of you.
I'm on Instagram at Misha91, MEISHA 91. I don't be posting about nothing, but you can follow me.
Yes. We are at My K-Pop Life 20 on Instagram. You can also hashtag all about that K-Pop life and find us on Instagram and YouTube as well.
I am at RPX_media. Feel free to follow us.
And I am K-Pop for Peace, Instagram, Facebook, as well as Twitter and TikTok. So we're around the whole social media world, but definitely give us a follow. We are about to launch a new project, so please definitely follow us.
Well, we do want to thank everyone for taking the time to watch and join in on the discussion. Thank you for the comments. Thank you for viewing. Thank you for being here. As said, we will have a part 2, so make sure you're following these lovely ladies for when that will happen. But thank you guys and have a good evening.